After the introduction of colonialism in the 16th century, Sri Lankan Buddhism has confronted many problems. So the politics of the 19th century and in particular latter part of the 20th century is a response to what happened in the 16th, 17th and 18th century. So, so when we ignoring other Buddhist facts, if you look at it as a political issue, the Sri Lankan Buddhist movement, Sri Lankan activism appears a direct response to colonialism and also dominance of Christian movements in the state. And now, after 1948, in particular after 1956, a lot of Buddhist organization, leading organization, asserted that we have to protect Buddhists. And so as a result, we see a lot of political movements, including, this can include even venerable Rahula's, the Vidyalankara declaration, and then, kind of leading up to. So in the politics as well as in the development of religion, 1956 was a turning point. And today a lot of people question whether Sinhala has been, whether Sinhala should have been the nation's language or whether it would have remained English. Now it's very clear that English is important today, but if the Sinhala was not, or the Tamil were not made vernacular languages, then majority of the population might not have got a lot of education. So, but nevertheless, these language policies may have given birth to extremist movements in the minority community, but also reactionary movement within the Buddhist tradition. In particular, after the 2000, in particular during the period of war, and after 2009, and we witnessed a lot of Buddhist movements in Sri Lanka, some have argued as extremist movement. Of course, when you study those groups, you see that some of them have noble ideas. They claim that they wanted to preserve Buddhism, they wanted to protect Buddhism, and they have a right to speak for Buddhists. And actually, nobody denies that. Anybody in Sri Lanka, any Buddhist, any person have a right to protect Buddhism, but that protection should be done in a harmonious manner, in a legal manner, and in a more non-harming manner, and in a way that it doesn't compromise Buddhist teachings. So any movement that go against the Buddhist teaching cannot be accepted as a Buddhist movement. And now in Sri Lanka, a lot of extremist movements are questioned to what extent those groups represent the majority of the Buddhist population. And now the recent election was a very good indication how all around the country, certain political groups, certain religious groups were excluded from the parliamentary process. Now these things, I think, give some indication that the average people in the country silently make decisions about religious tolerance and ethnic harmony and reconciliation. And I think this is important to recognize. So it doesn't mean that we should deny the Buddhist heritage, we should allow other people to destroy it. But I think if we are concerned about Buddhism, we have to act in a proper legal framework, and we have to rather than taking the law into our hands, we have to allow the responsible authorities to implement things. So that's maybe the one thing that we can learn from the things that we witness, and because so we have to be very careful not to give a bad name to the entire Buddhist community because people may have some political ambitions, may have some other ulterior objectives, and those things can be disguised as religious. And this can happen on the Buddhist side, it can happen in Christian side, it can happen in Muslim side, but whatever side it happens, the kind of combination of nationalism plus religious animosity is not a healthy thing for a developing country, a country which has gone through war for 26 years, and if you included 1956 onward, for longer periods. So for the success and longevity of the tradition, it's very important that we adopt the principle of loving kindness and compassion to everybody without any exclusion, because that's the heart of Buddhism. So of course we have to be mindful of extremism in other religious groups also. So that, I think, the growth of extremism and activism in the minority or other religious bodies, they have to be brought into legal framework and to attention of the authorities. And it may be long process, but I think it has to be done without violating and challenging the law and order.